The Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race ready to go here on ESPN, and here is the starting lineup. On the pole in car number 25, the Folger Chevrolet from Dooley, North Carolina, Ashland, Ohio, Tim Richmond qualified at 117.563. On the outside of row number 1 will be Darrell Waltrip from Franklin, Tennessee, the number 11 Budweiser Chevrolet. In the second row will be Harry Gant in car number 33, the Skoll Chevrolet, car number 33. He's from Taylorsville, North Carolina. Outside of the second row will be Rusty Wallace from Fenton, Missouri, in the number 27 Alucard Pontiac. In row number 3, Neil Bonnet from Hueytown, Alabama, in the number 12 Budweiser Chevrolet. Then Al Unser Sr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico, in car number 88, the Crisco Oldsmobile. In the fourth row, Ricky Rudd in number 15 Motorcraft Ford. Ricky's from Chesapeake, Virginia. Also in row number 4 on the outside in the Leot by Garrett Chevrolet, car number 5, Jeff Bodine from Chemung, New York, Pleasant Garden, North Carolina. In the fifth row, Richard Petty, car number 43, the STP Pontiac, and Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, in the Wrangler Jean Chevrolet. In row number 6 will be Bobby Allison in the number 22 Miller American Buick. He's from Hueytown, Alabama. Outside of that row will be Terry Labonte in the Piedmont Oldsmobile, car number 44. In the seventh row will be Benny Parsons in the Copenhagen Oldsmobile, car number 55. Outside of row number 7, in the number 71 Helen Ray Chevrolet, will be Dave Marcus from Avery's Creek, North Carolina. The rest of the starting lineup in row number 8, Mike Waltrip in number 23 and Kyle Petty in number 7. The ninth row will consist of Pancho Carter in number 17 and Bobby Hillen Jr. in number 8. In the 10th row, car number 75, Morgan Shepherd, and number 4, Rick Wilson. Row number 11, car number 26, Joe Ruttman, and Bill Elliott in number 9. The 12th row, Phil Parsons in number 66 and Tommy Riggins in 69. The 13th row, Ken Schrader in car number 90 and George Fulmer in 29. Then in row number 14 will be Chet Phillip in car number 81 and Thomas Rotzel in number 51. The 15th row consists of IMSA star Rick Knoop in car number 6, his first Winston Cup race, and Jocko Magiacomo in car number 63. The 16th row has Buddy Arrington in number 67 and Jimmy Means in 52. The next to the last row, J.D. McDuffie in number 70 and Phil Good in number 76. And in the final row will be Eddie Berschwald in car number 64 and James Hilton in 48. Willie T. Ribbs was unable to start, although he did qualify. They blew 4 engines this weekend, and Willie T. Ribbs decided to withdraw from the starting lineup. We're inside Al Unser Sr.'s race car, the number 88 Crisco Oldsmobile that starts outside of row number 3 in 6th position. The pace car pulls off. Here comes the field down. They get the green flag, and the Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race is underway. We're glad you're with us on this Sunday afternoon. Stay with us for an afternoon of exciting racing. It looks like that Darrell Waltrip has grabbed the lead from pole sitter Tim Richmond. Let's see if everybody gets through that first corner okay. It appears as if they did. Everybody running okay, but rest as they head up into turn number 2. Field stringing through there, and it's a good battle for the lead as Tim has gotten back that top spot as the number 27 car of Rusty Wallace and Darrell Waltrip battle side by side. They go down the long back stretch, and we should see some passing as they come down here. That's Rusty Wallace going to the outside of Tim Richmond and going into second position while Darrell Waltrip grabs the lead. Tim Richmond is back in third place already. So we've had 3 lead, or at least 2 lead changes here in the first lap of competition. Darrell Waltrip followed by Rusty Wallace, who has performed well here this weekend on the road course. He did extensive testing in this car and put it on the outside of row number 2, but he is running in second position at the moment. Right behind him is our pole sitter Tim Richmond. Tim getting this the right side of the car off the track just a little bit. That puts him in the racetrack between himself and Wallace. Here they come, the completion of lap number 1. It is Darrell Waltrip followed by Rusty Wallace. Then Ricky Rudd has moved into third position, followed by Harry Gant, and Tim Richmond is definitely falling back. And Rick, you got off the course a little bit. That may have.
I believe he just got a wheel off over there, and it takes a while to gather it back up. And of course, but Rudd made a good start. He's up. That's what put him up into the third position now.
Ricky Rudd started the race from 7th spot and is all the way up into third right now. There appears to be a little bit of smoke or something coming from the rear end of Rusty Wallace's car. I've noticed that a couple of times. At the moment, I don't know what it is, but it isn't affecting the car at all. He's right behind our leader, and there is Al Unser Sr., who's right behind Tim Richmond. It's Richmond in 6th and Al Sr. in 7th position.
Rusty's car looked like it might have been a little bit of the fuel overflow in that left-hand corner that was flowing out of the right rear corner, which was probably causing that.
Al Unser Sr. negotiating this racetrack here at Watkins Glen behind Tim Richmond. We understand that Tim Richmond's car has a miss. The engine is misfiring. Our spotters around the course have informed us of that, so we'll keep an eye on Tim Richmond's car. He has fallen back here at the beginning of the race. 2 laps completed. It's still Rusty Wallace trailing the leader, Darrell Waltrip. That's how close they are, and you can see the slight interval between 2nd and 3rd position as Wallace leads the 3rd place Ricky Rudd. I do not notice any of that fluid or smoke or whatever was coming from Wallace's car, so apparently everything is okay. Now there's a little tire smoke there, but again, apparently it's not affecting the handling or the running of that car at all. These two are taking off and leaving the rest of the field. They come down the backstretch. Speeds approaching 165 miles an hour here. The trap speed on that last lap was 160.7.
Rusty knocking at the right front there, getting into the corner. It's that's a tough place getting in there.
Still right behind our leader, Darrell Waltrip. We're on lap number 3 of this 90-lap race. Let's go down to the pit area.
As our spotters have confirmed, Tim Richmond's car is developing a miss, but it's only within a certain RPM range. I talked to Harry Hyde. He said it's only up around 6,000. So when he comes up through the gearbox, hits the 6,000, it misses. When he gets up higher than that, it goes away. They're not quite sure what the problem is, but now we see there's another blown motor on the course, gentlemen.
And we're not able to determine who it is at this point, but he has moved the car to the inside of the racetrack. And we'll try to determine, well, it's car number 63. That's the Jocko Giacomo machine. Jocko competing in Winston Cup events here in the eastern portion of the United States, competes regularly at Pocono and came here this afternoon in that number 63 machine, the Linro Corporation Buick. And we have a yellow flag on the course, and we assume it's because of that blown engine. The crews will be coming out to see whether or not there was any oil dropped on the surface, creating a hazard for the driver. So the pace car comes out in overall yellow, has been called for by the NASCAR officials. And there is the number 67 Buddy Arrington machine also coming in for a pit stop. They're refueling the car, but it's certainly a little bit early for routine pit stops. But Buddy makes a quick stop and gets right back out there in competition. So a rather early yellow here with only 3 laps completed. The leader of this race is Darrell Waltrip. Running in 2nd position is Rusty Wallace. 3rd is Ricky Rudd, and in 4th spot at the moment is Harry Gant. We'll be back with more live from Watkins Glen, New York. The race is under yellow here at Watkins Glen, New York because of a blown engine on the Jocko Giacomo machine, car number 63. And a little bit of oil fluid out on the racetrack, so the crews have come out to clean it up. Try to establish some radio communication here with Bobby Allison. Bobby Allison, this is Bob Jenkins in the ESPN booth. Can you hear me? Bobby at the moment is running in 11th position, but we're apparently having some communication problems with him. Field in single file formation now up through the S's. The way they're running, we have Buddy Arrington back in the pits for the 2nd time in the matter of just a few minutes here. The leader, Waltrip. 2nd is Wallace. 3rd is Rudd. 4th is Harry Gant. 5th is Neil Bonnet. 6th position is the pole sitter, Tim Richmond, who dropped back at the start of the race because of an apparent misfire in the engine. Al Unser running in 7th. In 8th position is Jeff Bodine. 9th is Richard Petty, and 10th is Dale Earnhardt. 11th is Bobby Allison. 12th is Benny Parsons. 13th, Terry Labonte. 14th position is Joe Ruttman, and 15th at the moment is Kyle Petty. The number 26 car of Joe Ruttman has probably made the biggest move of the race so far. He started 21st. He was the fastest 2nd-day qualifier on Saturday and has moved to 14th position. Joe Ruttman moving up well through the field. And we understand that rain is falling in back sections of the race course, and that's something that we really have not talked about. There were some black clouds in front of us, but we have had black clouds and threatening weather about all weekend, but it hasn't rained here on the track. But apparently it is now, and of course that is not good for high-speed racing conditions. Joe Ruttman running in 14th position as the field remains under yellow. There was only about a 40% chance of rain listed here this afternoon, but apparently there is a little bit of moisture falling on parts of the racetrack. Not quite the type of situation that Indy cars have, because when it rains you can live with a little bit of moisture in stock car racing, but not so in Indy cars, Rick.
No, it's I tell you though, over the weekend since we've been here, it's the rain has been kind of, it would come in and go away. It hasn't really been a lot of real hard downpours until maybe late in the day.
You can see a little bit of moisture on the windshield there of Al Unser's car.
Yeah, that's definitely enough to make the car a little slippery.
Yeah, certainly is. So the field slowed because of a blown engine on Jocko Majacomo's machine and some rain falling in back sections of the course. Pace car comes down the main straightaway here, leading the leader of the race, Darrell Waltrip. We'll talk to Al Unser Sr. about medal preparation changing from Indy cars to stock cars.
You just have to change your way of thinking. It doesn't, you still drive an Indy car by the seat of your pants. I don't care what anybody says, you know, they say the downforce takes over, but it doesn't. If it did, why do so many guys wreck with them, you know? So it doesn't always work that way, but the stock cars are more of a seat of your pants feel because they don't have the grip.
Comments from Al Unser, who was one of 12 drivers in the IROC race yesterday. There is Buddy Baker, the crew chief now on this machine. Al Sr. led for a great portion of that IROC race yesterday, and we'll talk with Rick Mears about his performance in that race in just a moment. But first of all, let's go down to Jack Arute.
Bob, you talk about the weather and the rain coming down. Well, the Winston Cup crews may have a little benefit that they normally don't get to enjoy. Here in Watkins Glen, there's a covered pit area that generally takes maybe 80% of their pits. So they're going to be able to bring them cars in, service, and if they have to get in out of the weather, they're going to be able to do it underneath these. Let's update you, too, as well, on a problem that may be developing on the 27th car, that of Rusty Wallace. Wallace, they feel they have filled the car too full with oil. They're beginning to devise a little Rube Goldberg-type outfit to be able to satisfy getting that oil back out of the engine before it goes to the racetrack. We'll keep you apprised of that.
Well, we have noticed some type of fluid coming from that car. It did look like it was coming from the fuel vent area, but it could very well be some oil leaking from that race car. So Rusty Wallace, despite the fact that he got off to a great start and is now in second position, may have a problem with that Al Ugard Pontiac. We're still under yellow at Watkins Glen, and we'll be right back. With Rick Mears and Jack Arute, this is Bob Jenkins back at the Watkins Glen International Racecourse, where the Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race is underway. And we haven't seen much action, quite honestly, so far. We ran about 3 laps under green, then the yellow came out because of some oil on the racetrack and because of rain falling in some portions of this track. The leader is Darrell Waltrip in car number 11. Second position is Rusty Wallace. Third is Ricky Rudd. In fourth is Harry Gant, and fifth place is Neil Bonnet. We haven't talked very much about what to expect as far as pit stops are concerned. Rick, I guess most of the crews are expecting 2 pit stops during this relatively short race.
Yeah, I believe it's 2 to 3, you know, depending on what kind of mileage they've got. But also another thing, as far as pit stops go, you know, we've been talking about the brakes being a problem as far as this track is concerned, and the, you know, 3,700-pound car trying to stop it in these corners, that really is hard on brakes. And I've even heard a couple comments from a couple of them talking about actually changing brake pads during the race.
Bobby Allison's crew did indicate that they were at least prepared to make changes in the brakes and to replace them during the course of the event. So that certainly is a possibility at this time.
On these pit stops, as far as the pit locations, I noticed Earl made a pretty good move on where he's pitted in the pit lane, being at the very end. I know with this pit lane, when you come in here, you come off of turn 7 and you can get a good run going into the pits. But then if you're pitted at the front, you have to stop, and then you take off and you get a good run, and the corner exiting the pit is very tight, so you have to stop again. So it's almost like he'll have to make one stop instead of two. He can stop right at the very end and just start getting up to speed as he exits the pit lane.
Watching Bobby Allison out on the racetrack behind Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty. Bobby has had good success on road courses. He has 6 wins at Riverside International. The last one was in 1981, but he has had 20 top 10 finishes in 37 Riverside starts. The word is being given to the drivers now by Harold Kinder, the official starter for NASCAR, that they'll go back to green in one more lap. The lights on the pace car are out, and that indicates that they will go green next time around. Well, we had an opportunity to talk with Rusty Wallace about his expectations here at Watkins Glen. Do you think there might be a problem with the fact that at Riverside there's a lot of runoff area, you get into the sand? Here you got guardrail to contend with.
Well, that is definitely going to be a problem. You're going to have to stay on the racetrack. There's a lot of grass around this place, so when you hit that grass, you just take off like crazy. And it's not like the sand at Riverside. When you hit that, you can fairly get the car under control. Here, you don't have any control. Is what happened to Bill Elliott when he qualified. The rear end broke off from underneath him. When he hit that grass, it just took off. But you've got to pay attention to what's going on and stay on the track.
That Bill Elliott crash, which occurred on Friday, he was actually warming up just to take the green flag for his qualification attempt. Was at least a very serious looking race. The car got on top of and part of the car over the guardrail, but they did get the car back into the garage area and make repairs. He qualified on Saturday, second day qualifier, and was the second fastest during that qualifying session. But Bill Elliott looking to move up through the field now here on race day. There is the Elliott crew.
I tell you, they did a super job of getting that car ready the way they did.
And Jack is down there ready to talk with the crew members. Jack?
Well, I'm here with Dan Elliott, one of the Elliott brothers. And Dan, you guys had to do a lot of heavy-duty reworking after you got here to Watkins Glen and the problem with Bill's car. Now that the race has only run actually 3 laps under green, has he reported as to whether the car's working to his satisfaction or not?
No, hadn't got a chance to get out of the traffic enough to tell how the car is, but according to what laps we ran yesterday, it's still not what it was the first day that we got here.
How tough is it on a crew when you come out here, you think you've got your best stuff ready to roll off the truck, and then even before you qualify, you just roll it up in a ball and have to try and straighten it back out and get into the field?
Well, we just had to do the best we can with what we had, because we really didn't have, we had a spare car in the truck, but it wasn't the kind of car we needed to run here. So we did the best we could with what we had left, and we're going to give it our best shot today, and I hope it's good enough.
When you talk about that spare car, if you go take a look at it, it looks like it's mobilized because there's an awful lot of parts and pieces missing off that car that he says wouldn't work here.
Bill Elliott has moved up 3 positions here in the opening laps. He was 22nd at the start and now 19th. The field is beginning to come off of corner number 7, headed for the resumption of the race. Green flag is displayed, and we are back to racing at Watkins Glen. Number 12, Neil Bonnet, moving to the inside, trying to pick up that 4th position from Harry Gant, and Gant gets a very bad start. Harry drops back 2 positions. The number 33 Skull Bandit of Harry Gant drops 2 positions as both Neil Bonnet and Tim Richmond were able to pass him when the green flag came out before they got into turn number 1. The field moving up now through the S's. Turns 2, 3, and 4, headed for the long backstretch. Harold Waltrip leading the single file formation down the backstretch. Speeds up around 165 miles an hour, now hard on the brakes and downshifting going into corner number 5. It's Darrell Waltrip still leading, but only by about 1 or 1.5 car lengths over Rusty Wallace. Ricky Rudd moving in there in 3rd position. On his back bumper, and there is still some fluid coming out of that race car. No question about it. Not as heavy perhaps as it was earlier, but there is still evidence of something, some kind of type of fluid or smoke or something coming out of that race car. Across the start finish line once again. This completes lap number 9. 9 laps completed out of 90. That will make up this Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race. Now a little bit of separation between second and third once again, at least in the early stages of this race. Waltrip and Wallace are showing their superiority. Ricky Rudd running in third spot, but there is
Neil's staying right tight on him. Neil Bonnet staying right up there with Ricky Rudd.
Bonnet running in fourth position, having made the pass of Harry Gant, and now again tire smoke, Rick, as he heads into turn 5.
Yeah, that's why I thought earlier the tire smoke, but that could be some of the oil from the blow-by. Also, at the end of the back straightaway after the RPMs shut the engine down.
Rusty Wallace, of course, was the winner of his first Winston Cup race here on ESPN earlier this year at Bristol, Tennessee. And that's where we will be 2 weeks from this weekend on a Saturday night as we once again return to that high-banked half-mile facility for a night race here on ESPN. But running in third, let's go down to Jack Arute.
Bob, we were talking about the problems that have befallen the 27 car with Rusty Wallace aboard. Remember me telling you that they were going to build themselves something to satisfy the blow-by of the oil? Well, take a look at it. Something that you could take from your local Kmart if you wanted. Just some tie wraps and then also a 1-gallon can. This is what they're going to insert in the car if it doesn't stop smoking shortly.
Well, that's an interesting looking little contraption there, but if it works, why, it works.
Whatever it takes.
Now Wallace appears to be ready to make a move. Yeah, he's going to the outside of Darrell Waltrip, racing him down the backstretch. It's a drag race. Last time trap speed 158, but Waltrip is going to hang on to the lead, but Rusty certainly made a nice challenge there coming off the fourth corner.
This corner's tough on the outside. If somebody stays down, he's ahead of you midway in the straightaway going into that corner. It's very tough to get by him on the outside.
I would imagine that there are relatively few places to pass. There are some straightaways. Now they're in one here between 6 and 7. But I would guess there aren't too many places that you can actually pass. Now we see that Tim Richmond.
Tim Richmond's getting up there, yes. He's past Neil.
Past Neil Bonnet and gone into fourth position. So there is third, fourth, and fifth. Ricky Rudd followed by Tim Richmond and then Neil Bonnet. Now Wallace drops down to the inside here on the main straightaway. Only taking a look, though. Not really in a position to challenge as Tim Richmond continues to move back up toward the front of the field.
Misfire is not bothering him too much, I don't think.
Richmond was the pole sitter, qualifying at 117.563, just about a mile an hour faster than the second fastest qualifier, Darrell Waltrip. Here is Dave Marcus, who has come in for an early pit stop. They're checking over the side of that car, and looks like they made no tire change. They did fuel the car up, and Dave back out there.
I saw him playing with the net, and I don't know if maybe the net was down or something. They had to come in and put that back up.
Could have been the netting on the driver's side of the car. Could have been askew or something. Anyway, he wasn't in very long, and he's back out there. Rusty Wallace continues to challenge Darrell Waltrip for that lead. Tim Richmond lying back there in third position, followed by Ricky Rudd and Neil Bonnet. Following in sixth position is Jeff Bodine in that yellow and white Levi Garrett car. Jeff had a problem in qualifying on Friday. He went out to qualify just after a tremendous amount of oil was put down on the racetrack, and Harry Gant has come in for a pit stop. And this could be a terminal situation for Harry Gant.
Yeah, they've got the hood up.
He has had just terrible luck in Winston Cup racing in the past few races. He had quite serious crashes both at Pocono and at Talladega. And in the last 3 races, his finishes have been 31st, 30th, and 22nd. His best finish most recently was a second at the Michigan 400 several weeks ago. They're putting the hood down on the Gant car, and they motion for Harry to go back out there on the racetrack, but there is obviously something wrong with that number 33 Skoal Bandit.
I noticed a little smoke as he went out of the pits. He might have a little bit more of a header or something.
We'll watch that situation. He did not lose a lap, but certainly did lose several positions. And Neil Bonnet has passed Ricky Rudd.
Jeff coming up there, and you know Jeff won a GTO race here with Jack Baldwin last month, so he's familiar with the course. He's had a little practice on it.
Several of these Winston Cup drivers have decided to compete in either GTO or some Jeff Bodine makes a move on Ricky Rudd to the inside, choosing to get some experience on road courses by running the GTO series. Benny Parsons has been competing in that series. All of this in preparation for what was supposed to have been an LR series from NASCAR, a left and right road course series, but that's kind of on hold at the moment, and nobody really is certain as to whether or not there will be an LR series in the near future. 13 laps have been completed. They continue to run in the same order, and Rusty Wallace once again smoking the tires, standing on the brakes going into corner number 5, following the leader, Darrell Waltrip. We are live on this Sunday afternoon from Watkins Glen, New York for the Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race. We'll be right back.
Back here at Watkins Glen, where Travis Carter, the crew chief on Harry Gant's car, has just completed another clocking. You had to bring Harry in early, Travis. What was the problem?
For some reason, we started to blow some oil. It looked like it was blowing out of the breathers. I think we might have overfilled the tank a little bit or something. It had too much oil in it. Creates a lot of pressure in the crankcase with that downshift, and it revs the motor pretty high. So if the oil level falls, I think it will, the problem will stop.
Well, there's another indication, another car we've already told you about. Rusty Wallace's problems with overfilling the crankcase, and now this is Harry Gant has had
Well, Harry Gant is certainly back in the field considerably. You can see there that he's trying to move back up through the traffic, but he has a lot of racetrack in front of him as far as catching the leaders. So Harry Gant is not looking real good at the moment, but the car at the same time not showing any evidence of smoke at the moment. Well, a little bit perhaps evident from the car as he goes down the back stretch.
Well, I'm talking about being back in the field. Elliott's working his way up. He's up to 14th. He's passed another car going into turn 1 here.
So Bill Elliott from 22nd position up to 14th now. And Joe Ruttman, who started in 21st position, as a spin has occurred in turn number 3. That's Rick Wilson in car number 4, looping it, but getting going anyway. Rick Wilson in that Kodak-sponsored car, trying to make a good impression on his sponsors, who are headquartered in Rochester, New York, not too far from here. Rick was running in 22nd position when that little incident occurred, and now he's trying to get back up to speed. Rick performed very well in some of the oval track races earlier this year. A great performance at Talladega. He wound up in 11th spot, but was running with the leaders just about all race long. There are the leaders once again. It is Darrell Waltrip continuing to lead as he is caught up with Chet Phillip and about to put a lap on him. Chet moving over and allowing the faster cars to move to the inside and putting a lap on him. Rusty Wallace is staying right behind in that second position, and now Tim Richmond is charging back up toward the front. So that
Here's Rusty going to make a move here.
And let's see if he does. He may have the lead. Nice move by Rusty Wallace, and Rusty goes in the lead.
Yeah, he's running that car pretty hard. You can see him sliding there awfully good. The tires, I've heard him say when they're new, they're good for about 10 laps and then start tapering off a little bit. So, it's hard to say how hard he's using those tires. It looks like he's using them pretty well.
Well, Rusty came here with a lot of hope this weekend. They did test that car here. He got in quite a few laps and perhaps had a little bit of an advantage on some of the other drivers who didn't. And his testing is showing itself here as Rick Wilson has come into the pits. Jack Arute is down there.
It looks like it could be a serious problem on Rick Wilson's machine. They're working beneath the hood, checking the carburation and the timing on the car right now. Taking a look, young Tony Glover is feeding fuel into it to see if the jets are working properly. The carburation critical here going through the shifts. This could have been what actually put him off the course, but the carburetor has been sticking. It sounds like that to me. Some of the linkage is actually being hung up, so they'll have to work on Rick Wilson's Kodak-powered machine and put him back out on the track. Gentlemen.
All right, thanks, Jack. Indications are that the leader, Rusty Wallace, may be black flagged because of that oil or whatever smoke that's coming from the car. We'll watch this time around to see if Harold Kinder does give him the black flag, but that is the indication. Tim Richmond, meanwhile, has moved to second position as Darrell Waltrip has now dropped back to third. Jeff Bodine has moved up to fourth, and Neil Bonnet running in fifth position. So those problems that beset Tim Richmond early apparently aren't as much of a factor right now.
It looks like Darrell's kind of decided the pace was setting, a little too strong for the race conditions. So he's going to look like he's going to back off a little bit, maybe save the tires, save the brakes, and work on it a little bit later on.
Well, Rusty did not get the black flag that time around, but you can very easily see the smoke coming from the rear end of that race car. Darrell Waltrip, one of the smartest, most intelligent drivers on the Winston Cup circuit as far as pacing himself. He gets out to an early lead. He establishes what the car can do, then very often will lay back for a few laps to watch what everybody else can do, and then at the end of the race make a charge for the front. They come down here once again, and Rusty Wallace has about a 7 or 8 car length advantage on second place Tim Richmond. We understand that Rusty Wallace will be making a pit stop this time around, or at least in the very near future. We'll keep an eye on that. And indications are also that if he does not come in for a pit stop under his own accord, he will be given the black flag. Harold Kinder, who is located right beneath us in our broadcast location, has the black flag in hand. And Rusty is dropping to the inside of the racetrack and is coming in for the pit stop. Here's Jack.
Johnson and the crew have brought Rusty Wallace in. The NASCAR officials have required that they put the little Rube Goldberg device in hopes of cutting down on the fuel, actually the oil that's being blown out past the breather. Dodson and Harold Elliott have going to work beneath the hood. You can see the smoke coming up from beneath it. It looks kind of like they're spraying for mosquitoes. This is going to be a somewhat costly stop for your leader, Rusty Wallace. Wallace, in the meantime, is standing resolute inside the car, doesn't look at all concerned about the problem. He's just standing there, and now he gives us the signal that he is indeed quite upset about it. This is taking longer than one would have expected. The reason is that the area that they have to get to is wedged behind two of what they call Oberg oil filters. They're flat filters, and they're trying to work barehanded on that hot engine right between those filters and the air cleaner. The work continues. It's a costly stop. Now they're lowering the hood. It looks like he may indeed lose a lap if they don't work quicker. And he's dropping away, but a long stop.
He is just going to almost lose a lap, but I don't think he is going to. Here comes the leader, Tim Richmond, across the start-finish line. Rusty is on the track and up to speed already. He did not lose a lap, but he is almost a lap down. Tough break for Rusty Wallace, who was showing some very determined speed and ability there in the early stages of the race. Wallace, of course, from Fenton, Missouri, the 1983 ASA champion, and the winner at Bristol earlier this year. You'll recall he also drove relief for Ricky Rudd at Talladega a couple of weekends ago and did a tremendous job. Ricky was not feeling well and was suffering a bout with the flu, and Rusty Wallace stepped in for him, took over that driver's seat and did a tremendous job in taking that car to a respectable finish. Now Tim Richmond has the lead with Jeff Bodine running in second position. Could a problem as like Tim experienced early in the race corrected itself, Rick?
Well, yeah, it could. You never know. It could be just something in the jet, in the carburetor, or something like that that could clear itself out. It's they don't heal themselves very often, but it could happen.
Well, he certainly is running like the car is in good shape at the moment. Now with just a few car length advantage on Jeff Bodine, who's running second. Waltrip has dropped back to third. Neil Bonnet is fourth. And Ricky Rudd dropping back to fifth position. Sixth is Al Unser. Seventh is Richard Petty. Eighth is Dale Earnhardt. Ninth, Benny Parsons. 10th is the number 22 car of Bobby Allison. Harry Gant has pulled off the racetrack. I don't believe this involves any kind of a spin. I think that Harry has just simply pulled off the course and realizes that his race is over. So Harry Gant is among the early threats to win this race, who is out of competition. Harry started in third, but his day is over. We'll be back with more in just a moment from Watkins Glen. Winston Cup Auto Racing live on ESPN this Sunday afternoon. We're at Watkins Glen, New York for the first Winston Cup race, NASCAR race at this facility since 1965. The leader is Tim Richmond. We have had 3 leaders in this race. Darrell Waltrip led for a while, then Rusty Wallace, and now the pole sitter, Tim Richmond. He had a problem earlier. Does he still have a problem? Well, perhaps Jack Arute can answer that question.
Well, Bob, just a couple of moments ago, there was a lot of activity in Harry Hyde's pit here for Tim Richmond. Harry, we thought you were going to bring him in. You thought there was a problem.
Well, we have got a problem with the fuel pressure gauge. It's reading 0 in one place on the racetrack, and Tim was afraid he was going to run out of fuel. But we should be able to stay out there about 10 more laps.
Now, add to that the problem you've got with the misfire at 6,000 RPM. Do you find it a little incredible that you're leading this thing?
Well, we had him to switch ignitions. We got a backup system, and he switched it over, and that cured that problem.
So they get rid of one problem and another one starts. Just those kind of days for Harry Hyde and crew.
Well, there is an explanation on whether or not the car is still missing. They switch over to the backup ignition system and everything is okay.
Well, now, you know, on that the fuel pressure gauge, I've heard a lot of guys are having trouble with fuel pickup problems. You know, getting the right, everything right in the fuel cell for fuel pickup. And as the fuel's getting low, you know, they've got 23 laps down here coming in fairly soon. So it could be just that it's running by the fuel pickup, picking up a little air, and making the misfire.
It's another inherent problem of running on the road courses as opposed to the ovals where you only turn left. You're concerned with right and left here, and there sometimes can be a fuel pickup problem. The leaders are approaching the number 6 machine of Rick Knoop, who is a former IMSA racer who competed last year with the BF Goodrich team, teaming with Jim Busby. However, this year, Rick lost that ride and now is trying his hand at Winston Cup racing. We have a battle for the lead, and Jeff Bodine grabs it going into turn number 1. So our 4th leader of the afternoon, and the crowd loves it because Jeff Bodine, this is his, well, perhaps we shouldn't say home track, but at least he's a home state favorite, as Jeff Bodine was originally from Chemung, New York. Now he has the lead and making a nice pass on Tim Richmond. Of course, Jeff Bodine living now in Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, but he grew up on the dirt tracks and the short tracks of upstate New York in the Chemung area. Here's a replay. The car's now coming off of the 7th corner, headed down the straightaway. He goes to the inside of Rick Knoop and stands on the accelerator.
You know, Richard might have had a little bit of that misfire from that fuel pickup problem coming off the corner, which made him hesitate a little, and that really gave Jeff a good run on him.
And going into the corner on the inside, Bodine has the lead. Now we go back to the live action, and Bodine now has about a 1.5 length advantage on Tim Richmond. So we've seen some pretty decent racing here in the first few laps. We've had 4 different leaders. There was some concern that these cars would get strung out on this road course and wouldn't present as good a show as you normally see in Winston Cup racing, but I'm quite impressed with several of them running right together on the racetrack and passing for the lead. Bodine getting that car a little bit sideways, it looked like, there in the S's.
Yeah, he's running pretty hard. He's running hard, but Bodine always does run hard.
Running about 152 miles an hour, we understand, at the end of this backstretch. The trap speeds that are being fed to us, about 151 miles an hour. So they're considerably slower than they were during the early stages of the race and during qualifying, mainly because of the traffic out on the racetrack. There is Joe Ruttman, who apparently is having some problems, as Ruttman has slowed dramatically on the racetrack. He was running in 13th position after having started this race in 21st, but Joe Ruttman in that Quaker State machine owned by Kenny Bernstein is in trouble. I believe he's going to make it around to the pit area. He is at the entrance to the pit area right now, so he's going to make it, but it looks terminal for Joe Ruttman. lot of speculation from the Kenny Bernstein team as to who will be driving this car next year. Joe Brutman apparently won't. The rumors have Morgan Shepherd in that car next year. Kenny says he'll have a formal announcement sometime probably later this week. Now there is Bill Elliott in car number 9, who's moved up to 11th spot after having started in 22nd. So Bill, and Al Unser Sr. has spun, and he takes with him Dale Earnhardt. The in-car camera providing some shots from us as Al gets the car straightened around again, and the yellow flag comes out.
Airliner in them, so it holds the car up off the ground so you don't drag the suspension and that kind of thing, enough to help you get back into the pits, but it's still tough no matter what kind of ladder.
So the second problem with the Rusty Wallace machine, he came in earlier and they tried to correct that apparently overfilled oil tank, and now he has a tire problem. We go inside Al Unser's car and can show you the problem that he experienced. Any indication as to what might have gone wrong?
What it looked like, the way the camera, you know, from the angle when he went into the corner, it looked like the rear tires broke loose under braking and started around, and he caught it, you know, the first time, and it kind of gets you into a tank slapper, and then the second time it just went on around with him.
So Al Unser Sr. has come in for a stop and is back out there, but let's talk with Buddy Baker, the crew chief, and find out if there is something else wrong with the car.
Bob, Buddy Baker has a request. He'd like to get a TV monitor down here, because while we were chatting before we came on the air, I said, Buddy, any problems after Al spun? And you said, who, where, what?
I didn't know he spun, really. He did a pretty good job if he did spin out, because he, you know, didn't really lose that many positions. So he says the car is real tight right now. We're making some adjustments on the stagger on the tires, but he's doing one whale of a job. I didn't know he'd spun.
Well, let's also show you one of the problems on the road courses. You see the scuffing and the rubbing on the inside of this tire? Well, this is not taking place during racing activity. It's actually taking place when these guys come down in for a pit stop. What happens is, because of the brake scooping, when they turn the tires just a tad so that they can get them on and off, it actually rubs that brake scooping up against the inside tire. Now, if you're too far down pit road and you turn it too quickly, you could cut one down. We'll have to stay appraised of that.
So there is some work that is going on the racetrack. They're looking at sections of the track and some guardrail. We're under yellow at Watkins Glen once again, and we'll be back in just a moment. We are back at Watkins Glen, New York for the Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race. And this is the largest crowd, we understand, to ever see a motorsports event at Watkins Glen. Even when they were running the Formula One Grand Prix here, they have never seen such a crowd. They had to shut off the infield from traffic very early this morning. There has to be well over 100,000 people in attendance here. Not only are the grandstands full, but they are 2 and 3 deep all along the fence that encircles this entire racetrack. Rusty Wallace is back in the pit area. They're trying to make sure that the car isn't rubbing against any wheel. Now Joe Ruttman, who was also in the pit area, has gone behind the wall and apparently is out of competition. We are a third of the way through this event, and at the moment there are 4 cars that have dropped from competition, namely Jocko Majacomo in the very early going with apparent blown engine. The number 76 car of Phil Good is out of the race. Harry Gant pulled off the racetrack, and as I indicated, the most recent to drop out is Joe Ruttman in car number 26. Well, Neil Bonnet in number 12 is still out on the racetrack and in 4th position. And this is the first time that Neil has competed in racing since an accident a few weeks ago at Pocono, in which he suffered some cracked ribs and other injuries, and he's doing quite well. We had a conversation with Neil earlier in the weekend concerning his physical condition and whether or not he thought he could go the entire race.
Last Thursday or Friday, I was questionable of whether or not I could come up here, and I've done a lot of work and, you know, got in shape, I believe, to where I can make the thing. About Saturday, Sunday, I started coming around, and the first this week, I really started feeling a lot better.
The word from Neil Bonnet. Now, Bobby Rahal was sort of asked by Junior Johnson and others to stand by for some relief driving. However, Rahal went home after the IROC race. They do have a driver, however, standing by just in case Neil needs relief. Let's get more on that from Jack.
Bob, actually what happened is they asked Bobby Rahal at Talladega if he'd consider coming up here, and he said, well, I'll be here for IROC, but I'm just not sure if I'd want to actually try my hand. Rahal has driven before. But the gentleman next to me lives close by in nearby Rochester, New York, Doug Hevron, who was a modified, super modified standout, who also showed his hand in Winston Cup competition and did quite well until you literally ran out of cash funds. Doug, what did it feel like for Junior Johnson to call you this week and say, hey, come on up, just in case Neil Bonnet isn't ready to do the trick here?
It was a great feeling. I felt really honored. Once before, back in '82 or '84, excuse me, they asked me to get ready for when Darrell got sick at Charlotte. So it's the second time it's happened, and sooner or later, hopefully, something's going to break for me here, and maybe I can get a ride.
Is it frustrating for a driver like yourself to know that people like Junior Johnson think enough of your talent to ask you to stand by, and yet you can't secure a full-time ride in competition?
Yeah, it's very frustrating. You know, I've gone out and I've done the best I could do with the equipment that I've been driving, and the brakes haven't been going my way, but when somebody like that asks you to drive or be ready to drive their race car, it gives you a real big boost, and just hopefully it'll keep going.
Well, obviously the report from trackside is that Neil Bonnet doesn't need any relief today. That's the reason for the civvies here on Doug Hevron. Also, guys, let me fill you in a little bit about the reconditioning that took place for Neil Bonnet. Do you know where all that work took place? In the now defunct United States Football League training facilities for the Birmingham Stallions. That group put Neil Bonnet back together well enough to run here today. Kind of ironic, isn't it?
The green flag has just come out over the racetrack once again, and Tim Richmond has jumped in the lead as he kind of got the jump on Darrell there at the drop of the green, Rick, and passed him going into turn number 1.
Yeah, he did a good job, and you know, you're going to have to kind of see how these things unfold and how hard these guys are driving. So you know, they're running hard. There it is. Yeah, he got a good run at him coming off the corner.
Now, what do you do in your mind when you know that you're going green? Do you try to anticipate and build yourself up mentally for the drop of the green?
Yes, you do. Anticipation is really the main thing. You know, you try to lay back just a little bit and hopefully you get on the throttle before the guy in front of you does, and everything works out right. You approach the car in front of you as the thing goes green, so you can just keep the momentum up and go right on by him.
And Jeff Bodine has also moved around Darrell Waltrip into second position. Waltrip goes from first to third here in the half lap that we have run under green since coming off that yellow flag condition caused by the Al Unser spin that also involved Dale Earnhardt, but both of those cars back in action. We also mentioned that Joe Ruttman's car had been pushed behind the wall. However, he is back out there in competition, so Joe Ruttman is still in this race. Tim Richmond leading Jeff Bodine and Darrell Waltrip through the S's. Running in 5th position is Ricky Rudd. 6th is Richard Petty. In 7th position is Earnhardt. 8th is Benny Parsons. 9th is Bobby Allison, and 10th is Al Unser. Jack Arute in the pit area.
Rick and you both aware of something that I've picked up down here on pit road, and I think it's quite interesting. We talked about the race pace early on when Darrell Waltrip and company were just blistering this track the first 4 or 5 laps. Well, the race pace has dropped by about 2 seconds now. And what's interesting is I think there's 2 methods of attack right now. One held by Tim Richmond and Jeff Bodine, and that's to run a little harder, trying to stay out front. The other one is by Darrell Waltrip. It looks almost to me like he's waiting for the race to come back to him. I checked with Junior Johnson and Jeff Hammond, and they confirmed that that is the technique that they're going to use. They've decided in their own mind a race pace they want to set. They're not going to deviate from it, regardless of whether they're running first, second, or third, like Waltrip is right now.
And I guess, Rick, that's just basically something that you have to decide before the race, whether you're going to go for it or whether you're going to kind of lay back. It would seem, though, that in this relatively short race of only 90 laps, that you would be very much concerned in at least staying toward the front as much as you can.
Well, you do want to stay close, but, you know, as you've seen already, there are going to be some yellows, so the guys can kind of use that a little bit. Lay back, save the car, save the brakes, save the tires, save the fuel, and, you know, as they get the yellows, bunch back up and just try to conserve a little bit. Now, these guys are running hard up front, and, you know, everybody pitted on the 27th, 28th lap, and, you know, the next stop is about 60 laps, so we don't know what fuel's going to be like yet for the end of this race.
That's a good point about the yellows on road courses in IndyCar racing. They wave the yellow flag only in that portion of the racetrack in which there is a problem. But in this Winston Cup race, when there is a problem anywhere, at least we have seen it twice already, they're displaying an overall yellow as Jeff Bodine. Didn't quite make it. They come off of corner number 7 and head down the straightaway. And Jeff Bodine, let's see now if he makes a move on Tim Richmond going into turn number 1. He shoots to the inside of the racetrack, tries to go inside, and does.
I tell you, that surprised me, being able to make that move there after being kind of pinched a little bit down in the middle of turn 1, because that usually kills your momentum a little, and he still had enough to get by him.
So Jeff Bodine becomes our 6th different leader of the afternoon. 4 drivers have led, but we've had 6 lead changes. And a replay of it, Bodine almost making the move in turn number 7. Here on the straightaway, he goes inside.
Just slides under him underneath braking. You know, it just gets in a little bit deeper, a little bit harder. He's using the brakes up a little bit more here, but it was well worth it. It worked.
That's a good point. You perhaps take a chance in making that kind of a move to grab the lead momentarily, but at the same time, you may be using the brakes just a little too much.
The way he's pulling out here, though, he may be, you know, working strong enough and well enough that if he can stay out front, he can kind of back off a little bit, and he's, you know, be a little easy on the brakes and the tires and still hold the lead.
Darrell Waltrip now back in 3rd position, and his teammate Neil Bonnet running in 4th position. So the Hendrick team making a good showing. The Junior Johnson team making a good showing here. Rick Hendrick will be the man that Darrell Waltrip runs for next year. Plans, of course, have already been announced for Darrell Waltrip to join the Rick Hendrick team. And so he is ending his association with Junior Johnson after this season. And Waltrip now approaching the 2nd place car of Tim Richmond. And we may be seeing past there, Terry Labonte has pulled into the pit area, and he drops out of competition. And the problems that have beset Terry Labonte in the last few races continues. He's had a tough time. He did finish 6th at Pocono a couple of races ago, but in Talladega, the most recent Winston Cup event, he was 38th. He also had a 19th place finish in the Firecracker 400 at Daytona. It has not been what you would call a good season for Terry Labonte. The bearings apparently are junk in that engine, and that's the reason why Terry Labonte has called it a day. And he apparently will be Junior Johnson's replacement for Darrell Waltrip next year. Terry was running in 11th position when he pulled off course. Joe Ruttman's problems continue as we watch the action on the racetrack. Ruttman has come in for another stop and goes behind the wall for a 2nd time.
You know, if you watch Waltrip here running along behind Tim Richmond, his car seems to be hooked up a little bit better. He doesn't seem to be having to lean on it quite as hard as Tim does to run that same kind of pace. So I think Darrell's in pretty good shape. He's running along here, not using the tires up that much, and still able to run right with everybody.
There is Bodine, Richmond running in 2nd, then Waltrip, and Neil Bonnet, and Ricky Rudd in 5th, Richard Petty in 6th, Dale Earnhardt in 7th position. As you said, he apparently has that car hooked up because he's stretching out the advantage just a little bit as they head down the backstretch at about 155 miles an hour. Jeff Bodine, as we indicated, was extremely unhappy after his qualifying. We talked to him, and he was just very unhappy. We now focus our attention on Richard Petty as we indicated Jeff Bodine went out on the racetrack to qualify after a lot of oil had been dumped, and he thought that was quite unfair because after he qualified, the crews did go out onto the racetrack and dry up the oil, but nevertheless, Jeff did have a respectable qualifying speed of 114.6 miles an hour, started in 8th. He was showing the performance of that car here this afternoon by leading. There's Richard Petty in car number 43. He's running in 6th spot at the moment. Staying up there with the leaders. They come single file down the main straightaway. He's right behind Ricky Rudd. And look at Benny Parsons make a move on Dale Earnhardt going into corner number 1. And Rick, that apparently is where we've seen most of the passing here.
That is. That's the way you're going to see most of the passing done on a road course. That's really another one of the main differences between road courses and ovals is that all your passing is usually done going into or off from a corner rather than racing side by side through it, which is the way you do most stuff on the ovals. You'll see a lot of that here today.
So Benny Parsons moves to 7th. Dale Earnhardt is back to 8th. Al Unser is in 9th, and in 10th position is Bill Elliott. There's a good look at Benny Parsons. 7th place at the moment. Bill Elliott up to 10th after the 22nd starting position, so Bill continues to run well. Here comes the field off of that corner once again, off of corner number 4. There is Bill Elliott in the number 9 machine. Virtually destroyed in an accident here on Friday, but they went to work and got the car put back together, and it isn't looking too bad, really. It had a lot of paint crinkles in it earlier this week.
I noticed earlier too, I think he's kind of biding his time and working his way up too. He knows there's going to be yellows and be able to bunch up, and he looks like he's kind of running a pace and saving the car as he was working his way up through the traffic earlier.
38 laps have been completed. Bill Elliott, by the way, was the 2nd place finisher in the IROC race yesterday here at Watkins Glen. Also the 2nd place finisher in the point standings. And Rick, you were in that race and didn't have one of your better days.
No, it wasn't one of our better days. We had a little bit of a misfire right through the S's where you see the cars now. But I just, after we start dropping back a little bit, I thought this would be kind of crazy to put this car in the fence running last. So we just thought we better bring it home.
Winner of that IROC race yesterday, of course, was Al Unser Jr., who also wound up as the IROC champion for 1986. There is the leader, Jeff Bodine from Chemung, New York. And we have Chet Phillip, who has gotten off the racetrack, just got the wheels off. I don't think he even made a complete spin. Maybe he did, but no serious problem. That occurred in corner number 2. And Chet Phillip is back on course and building up speed once again. We'll be back with more of our live coverage at the Budweiser at the Glen.
Jack Arute back with Bob Jenkins and Rick Mears here at Watkins Glen for the Budweiser at the Glen. And this gentleman standing next to me is retired from the competition, former Winston Cup champion Terry Labonte. Terry, some burned bearings put you out.
I guess that's what it was. That's what we think it was anyway.
What about the competition out here today? Is it as good as you expected it to be? It looks like one whale of a race.
Well, it is. It's awful hard to pass. That's the biggest thing that I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be a little bit easier to pass people than it was.
Well, it was tough to pass for Terry Labonte, but there's been an awful lot of passes up front, haven't there, guys?
There really have. As we indicated, we've had 6 different leaders in this race, and there is Rusty Wallace, who led early, had a couple of problems, but he is running pretty well at the moment and trying to thread his way back through the traffic and move his way up to the front once again. Rusty Wallace and that number 27 Al Ugard Pontiac running right behind Morgan Shepherd at the present time on the racetrack.
The way Rusty was running earlier, I don't think he'll have much problem working his way back up there.
Unfortunately, he did lose a lap on that.
That's right, he did.
Yeah. He moved to the inside and passes Morgan Shepherd. Shepherd involved in a race 4 position here. Ahead of him is Kyle Petty and also Bobby Allison. They're running for 11th, 12th, and 13th position. And there we have the battle involving 8th, 9th, and 10th. It is Dale Earnhardt, Al Unser Sr., and Bill Elliott. Elliott continuing to run in 10th position. There's the in-car camera right at the start-finish line. And maybe if we stay with us long enough, we can go around the track in this lap, Rick.
Here it is. This where Al had a little trouble before, and you can see he was doing a little sliding there too. That looks like the track's getting a little bit slippery now, and it will as the day goes on get a little bit more so. This is a very quick corner here. It's a tough one. It's a lot tougher than it looks. Back of this left, the car gets light. And back into the right-hander, and this is a little bit sharper than it looks right here when you're actually in the car.
You know, we compare this track, or at least talk about the fact that these Winston Cup drivers compete at Riverside on a road course.
Good move there.
Now making a move on him. And passing as they go down the backstretch.
That's where the passes are going to be done the majority of the time. You know, at the end of the backstretch, at the end of the stretch coming back up to us, and right here at the start-finish line going into 1.
Unlike Riverside, this course has some elevation changes. There's actually some up and down hills, and I imagine some blind spots on this racetrack.
Yes, that does cause some blind spots. And, you know, with the corner workers working here with the flags and everything, they do a good job of, you know, letting you know if there is a problem. But it's something you just really have to stay on your toes and look for any telltale signs of smoke or anything else over the horizon, I guess.
The lead continues to be held by Jeff Bodine. It's about a 4-second lead now for Jeff as we continue to stay in car with Al Unser Sr. Benny Parsons has come in for a pit stop. They're changing the rubber on the left side of the car and refueling it. Perhaps not a routine pit stop for Benny because they pitted on about laps 27 and 28 and could go much further than we have gone without a routine pit stop. So Benny Parsons has the work completed. He goes back out there. We'll see if the problems that he is maybe experiencing in that car continue. There's Bodine with the 4-second lead.
He's really stretching it out here, but I have a feeling now he's out far enough he can kind of, settle down and just kind of get into a rhythm and let everything work for him.
Tim Richmond in second position, the number 25 Folgers machine. Darrell Waltrip running in third and Neil Bonnet in fourth spot. And in fifth would be the number 15 car driven by Ricky Rudd. Earlier today here on ESPN, the Hungarian Grand Prix as the Formula One circus went behind the Iron Curtain for the first time in modern Formula One history. And in case you missed it, Nelson Piquet was the winner of that race, with Ayrton Senna finishing in second, Nigel Mansell third, and Stefan Johansson fourth. Mansell continues to maintain the points lead for Ayrton Senna. And not even a week break now, and they go right back to racing a week from today in Austria. Another race that we'll have for you here on ESPN next Sunday morning. Next Sunday promises to be one of the most interesting auto racing days in perhaps the history of ESPN. Sunday morning we'll have the Formula One race for you from Austria. Then we will have the Winston Cup race from Michigan International Speedway, the 2-mile tri-oval in which the competition is always outstanding. And then on a tape delay basis next Sunday evening, we will have the Pocono 500 for IndyCars. And we'll talk with Rick Mears a little bit about that race in just a few moments. He's done some testing there. Right now, we'll take this break and be right back to Watkins Glen. The leader here at Watkins Glen in this Winston Cup event is Jeff Bodine with about now a 5-second advantage on Tim Richmond. Third is Darrell Waltrip, fourth Neil Bonnet, and fifth is Ricky Rudd. There you can see the advantage that he has pulled out to here as we are just past the halfway mark.
It looks like Elliott might be backing off the pace a little bit for some reason.
Bill Elliott was running up there in the top 10. However, he has dropped out of the top 10 at the moment. Now, a recheck with NASCAR scoring indicates that Rusty Wallace is on the third lap and is being in ninth position. So we'll have to go with the official word from NASCAR. Rusty Wallace, who did make a couple of unscheduled pit stops because of a couple of problems, including a flat tire on the left rear of the car, is in the lead lap and running in ninth spot. Back inside the Al Unser Crisco Oldsmobile as he negotiates this 2.428-mile racetrack. He is in seventh position. I think it's a pretty respectable showing for Al Unser, who was called upon just earlier this week to take over this ride.
He's doing a great job. That Al's a racer. He can get in anything, any car, anywhere, any type of track and run quick.
Nice to have a guy like that as at least your teammate. He is an opponent, but at least he's your teammate.
Yes, it is.
Some good pictures from the in-car camera coming to us. There he is coming down the straightaway. Once again, he's running in seventh position. Al Unser Sr., one of those who will be in competition next weekend as we go back to the leader, Jeff Bodine. Let's talk about the Pocono 500, Rick. You've done some testing there, and what can we expect?
Yes, we have. The cars are going to be quick there. We've been doing some running, and we have a little bit of a bump in turn two, but Cart's working on that to get that settled down a little bit. But the cars are going to be quick. I don't know if you're going to see as big leaps or bounds or gains in speed there as we have in some of the other tracks, but they will definitely be quicker. Say around 206, somewhere there.
Okay, that's what we will expect next Sunday evening on a delayed basis. The Domino's Pizza 500 from Pocono, Pennsylvania. Down to Jack Arute, who's with Gary Nelson.
Well, Bob, actually, we're high atop pit road on what they call pit boxes. Now, they sell these seats, but I don't think they sold one to this guy. Gary Nelson is calling the shots on top of his pit position for the Levi Garrett Chevrolet. Gary, why have you chosen here to call the shots rather than down on pit road?
Well, this area is right above our pits. You know, I think it's the first stock car race I've seen from the stands, but our radio doesn't work under there because we're surrounded by concrete. I get up on top here and I can talk to Jeff up on the upper ends of the course, and that's the most critical time if we got to call him in the pits in a hurry. I got to talk to him right up there. So.
Okay, the report from Jeffrey so far in the race, is the car running the way he'd like it and the way you'd like it?
I always like it when we're out front. You know, Jeff told me he was going to run it as hard as it would go without abusing the car. He's doing a good job. His lap times are really consistent, and I think barring no trouble, we're in good shape.
Well, okay, and the report is that he will be pitting in about 4 or 5 laps. But come here, I want to show you something. You want to talk about some irony? Look at the name of the booth that Gary Nelson is calling the shots from.
Quite ironical as the Levi Garrett Chevrolet, driven by Jeff Bodine, is leading this Budweiser at the Glen, and he has stretched the advantage to about 7 seconds over Tim Richmond. Jeff Bodine leading just past the halfway point, and we will have more live coverage from Watkins Glen, New York, right after these messages. Stay with us. Jeff Bodine leads the Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race with about an 8-second lead now on Tim Richmond. Bodine has led 20 laps. We are on lap number 52, and we will be seeing some pit stops here in the next few laps. About the maximum number of laps they could complete is about 63, and right now we're on lap 52, so within about 2 laps, another 10 laps, seeing the second and perhaps last series of pit stops. There is second place Tim Richmond in car number 25, and Rick has really stretched out the advantage here.
Yeah, he has. He's got that car working very well. He's running a good, comfortable pace, and you know, it just everything's going right for him.
And it is a 10-second lead now for Jeff Bodine over Tim Richmond. There is Jeff once again. Levi Garrett Chevrolet. You don't even see Tim Richmond coming out of the S's. There he is.
Everybody's doing a good, clean job here. It's been a good, clean race so far. Everybody's running hard, running quick, but everything's going well.
Yeah, we have had a couple of spins, but nothing of any significance whatsoever. So yes, it has been a very clean, very interesting race on this road course. We've seen some good passing. And Rusty, speaking of spins, Rusty Wallace.
Spoke too soon.
That's right. Boy, Rusty has had a terrible day. The race started out so well for him. The yellow flag is out. The yellow is out. This is going to allow the drivers to come in for their second series of pit stops. So we'll prepare for the pit stops. Jack Root will position himself to watch and call some of the major leaders and how they do in the pit area. Rusty led in the early portion of this race and was looking so strong in that Pontiac, but then things started to happen for him. And he apparently still is on the lead lap and running in 7th position, but he may have lost a couple of spots there in that spin.
It's yellow now, though. That'll bunch them all back up again. We'll be able to see who's been holding what up their sleeve.
And there is Jeff Bodine still out on the racetrack, but we assume that he will be coming in for his stop in just a moment here. Watch him negotiate the corners as the field has been slowed under this caution because of the spin by Rusty Wallace. And here comes Jeff Bodine into the pit area. We'll watch his stop. Jack Root is right there.
The pits. Bodine has come into the pits. Gary Nelson and the Levi Garrett crew have gone to work. They're going to the left side tires, and now they will make the switch around and go to right side tires as well. Tim Richmond has come in, as has Neil Butler, who was third, and Darrell Waltrip fourth. Now they came in much later than Jeff Bodine did. They are just beginning their work, and in 26.6 seconds, Jeff Bodine has completed his work. Meanwhile, Richmond is going to work. Tim Richmond's crew, also out of the Hendrick operation. They are working on his machine. Left sides have been completed. They're going to go to the right sides as we speak. This, as we said, is the difference between pitting at one end of the pit road and the other. Bodine is away, but it's a lengthy pit stop for Tim Richmond. They continue to work on the car. The clock is ticking off. They're still working. He's down, they push him away, and he's out. But it was much longer than his teammate, Jeff Bodine, and now Walter was away as well. Ricky Rudd completing his work. He's been running well over the board. He is down and away as well. A lot of good pit stops here, but lengthy. One of the reasons, you want to take on 4 brand new tires. No sense gambling, because this could be your last stop on pit road in this 90-plus lap event.
Well, although some of the pit stops were rather lengthy, Rick, I don't think anybody got really seriously hurt because of the yellow. Whoa, there's Bobby Allison.
Yes.
Came very close to hitting a tire wall over there. And
once you get in that grass, those things are difficult to stop, especially 3,700 pounds worth.
That was in corner number 2, just going into the S's. So Allison is back on track. But as we were saying, I don't think the lengthy pit stops hurt anybody. Everybody took their time and are out there now in single file once again.
In that yellow situation, it's better to take your time and make sure everything's done right rather than get in a hurry and possibly make a mistake.
Now everybody will be able to go the remainder of the race without a pit stop. 53 laps completed out of 90.
There he is.
There's Allison.
Oh, long slide. That's when you're holding your breath and pulling your elbows in and everything else right there.
But he saved it and he didn't hit the tires.
Good. Good job.
Bobby Allison also off the course. And there is the pace car leading the field around. Phil Parsons is the first car behind the pace car. We'll be back with more in just a moment. The Budweiser at the Glen field slowed because of our 3rd yellow flag of the afternoon. This one caused by a spin involving Rusty Wallace. It has allowed the leaders to come in for their 2nd and final pit stops of the afternoon. And now with the field bunched up, it'll be a sprint here when the green flag comes back out. We're going to try to talk to Bobby Allison once again. Bobby Allison, this is Bob Jenkins up in the ESPN booth. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Bob, I can hear you.
Bobby, you scared us. It looked like you were about to hit the tire wall. You saved it. What happened?
Came down into turn 1 and going slow. I had it in too tall of a gear and the brakes wouldn't stop the car. And I had to go off the track and go for a big wide coast to keep from trying to mess something up. Didn't hurt anything.
Bobby, is the track slick from all of the oil and stuff that's been laid down this afternoon?
Yeah, the track is a little bit slick, but the time seemed to be saying fairly good about what we thought race speeds would be.
Well, Bobby, the last time we checked before these pit stops, you were running in 8th position. Is the car okay, and do you have a shot of winning this thing?
Well, the car is driving pretty good, seems to be handling pretty good, but we're just not as quick today as we ought to be.
Okay, well, good luck the rest of the way. We'll keep an eye on you.
Thank you.
Bobby Allison, and a synopsis of how his race is going. Still under yellow here with Jeff Bodine, the leader. And in 2nd position is Neil Bonnet. 3rd is Tim Richmond. 4th is Darrell Waltrip. And in 5th position, unofficially at the moment, is Ricky Rudd. So we'll take another break during this yellow and come back with more from Watkins Glen, New York. We hope you're enjoying our USAC Midget Series from the Indianapolis Speedrome. We've had 2 races for you on Thursday nights. They begin at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll have a 3rd this coming Thursday night. Now, Bev Griffiths, of course, the female driver, won the first Thursday night. And last Thursday night, Mac McClellan drove a superior race to win the USAC Midgets at the Speedrome. It's an exciting type of racing. We hope you'll be with us at 10 o'clock this Thursday night for race number 3 in our USAC Jolly Rancher Midget Speedrome Series. Well, we talked about the fact that they've had their second series of pit stops, but can they go the distance without another stop? Jack, what about it?
Well, we talked to Harry Hyde, the crew chief on Tim Richmond's car. He said we wish we had 2 more laps. They're not going to be able to go the distance, they don't think. They said it's marginal. We checked with Junior Johnson down on this end. He said it's marginal for them as well. They've been huddled all during this caution, trying to determine just how far they can go. They're going back to green flag racing. Whether they'll be back in the pits or not, nobody knows right now.
The green flag comes out once again, and the race is on. Jeff Bodine is your leader. He goes to the inside and passes Tommy Riggins. Now, Tommy was on the lead lap in 16th position, but he now goes a lap down. Phil Parsons is with his contingent. He is on the lead lap, but almost about to go a lap down with Jeff Bodine. We have 15 cars now on the lead lap. And Jeff Bodine is pulling away from everybody else once again.
You're liable to see some real racing here going on, because we heard there's maybe a few sprinkles out on the backside, and it's getting a little dark. So these guys are going to be hustling to try to stay up in front just as easy as happens.
That's Neil Bonnet and Tim Richmond and Darrell Waltrip running behind the leader, Jeff Bodine. Yeah, it has gotten a little darker, and we have had the reports of some sprinkles on the racetrack. So perhaps there is some concern that this thing could develop into a full-fledged rain, and we might have to stop the event. And perhaps, in addition to that, Bodine, although he has led, perhaps Bonnet now, Richmond and the others will try to see if they have as much as Jeff Bodine has displayed in the first 60 laps of this race.
Here comes Richmond. He's making a move. Oh, good move.
Richmond takes second from Neil Bonnet. And now Tim closing in on our leader, Jeff Bodine, who has not been able to pass Phil Parsons and put a lap on him. The car comes out of the pit area, and they also have to pass him. Jack, in the pit area, what's your observations?
Yeah, well, Rick was talking about the weather, and you were alluding to it as well. Knowing what we do down on pit road about the big question mark about fuel, I'd ask Rick, as a driver, what kind of a decision do you make? You see the ominous clouds, you question whether you're going to be able to maybe go the distance without another pit stop. Do you drop the hammer and try and take the lead now? Or do you maybe make the choice to say, well, the weather's going to hold and I'm going to go the distance and try and conserve fuel? I think these drivers may have a very big headache before the day's over trying to make up their mind.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough decision to make. It's really going to, the call would have to be just by looking at the clouds and the sky and see what it looks like. And if it looks like it's really getting dark and a very strong chance of it raining, I'd say I'd have to go ahead and stand on it and try to get up front just in case it does.
I'll tell you what's interesting, when you ask the crew chiefs what they would like the driver to do, each and every one of them said, we don't want to bring them back into the pits for more fuel, so they need to do whatever is necessary to make that car go the distance without another stop.
Well, Neil Bonnet and Darrell Waltrip are involved in a real dogfight here. Bonnet right now leading Waltrip in that third position. They are going at it tooth and nail.
They've had a good tight battle going all along here. They're running close.
The Junior Johnson cars battling for position out on the racetrack. And Tim Richmond is at this point showing that he would very much like to see if he can pass Jeff Bodine. They come down the straightaway here. That is again Phil Parsons in the lead with Richmond behind him. And then this contest for third position. That number 29 machine there is being driven by George Fulmer. And here we are inside Al Unser Sr.'s car once again. Al Unser Sr. at last report was outside of the top 10, but in about 15th position after an off-course excursion and some other problems that have plagued him. Quite honestly, there were a lot of people going into this race based on Al Sr.'s qualifying performance in this car, knowing that he has a lot of road racing experience in Indy cars, thought that he had a real shot at this, but it doesn't appear as if it's going to happen. There is George Fulmer now that is sandwiched between Neil Bonnet and Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip having a as they come off of the S's, corners number 2 and 3. We understand that Al Unser Sr. is in the pit area in that number 88 machine, our in-car camera, and the problem may be a gearbox problem. There he is. Jackaroo, perhaps you can confirm.
Indeed, it is a gearbox problem. They have lost second gear and third gear, and now they're in danger of losing fourth gear as well. Buddy Baker, the crew chief, told me just moments ago, when it rains on our parade, it rains on hard. A tough break for a fine run by the Crisco Oldsmobile and by Al Unser Sr. He's done a terrific job here today, but it looks like it may be tout fini for the team. He's taken his goggles off. I think just momentarily we'll hear the kill switch. Gentlemen, it's over for car number 88, and Al Unser Sr.
Too bad for Al Unser Sr., who comes to Winston Cup Racing for the first time in many, many years, but is not going to come away with a victory. We watch this battle down the straightaways. We also update you on our 28-58 update. The American League Baseball scores. That is Jeff Bodine and Tim Richmond following nose to tail on the racetrack. The National League Baseball scores now. Don't forget we have tennis following our auto race from Watkins Glen, New York. The Lindell and Becker Wimbledon rematch in the Volvo finals. And of course our Sports Center update will be on at 7 o'clock. We also have a contest going on back for 6th position between the number 43 STP Pontiac of Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. And here's a pretty good contest. That is Tommy Riggins at number 69, the number 69 machine.
A little smoke coming off of Petty there.
But he at the moment has 6th position, leading Dale Earnhardt. And Dale has really not been a factor in this race, at least to this point. We've given you the top 5 numerous times in the last few moments. That is Jeff Bodine and Tim Richmond and Neil Bonnet, Darrell Waltrip, and Ricky Rudd. 6th is Petty. 7th is Earnhardt. 8th is Rusty Wallace, who, despite numerous problems, is still on the lead lap in the top 10. And a car spinning, and there's Jeff Bodine. Unbelievable. Jeff Bodine, who had a huge lead at one point until the most recent yellow, and who was staying ahead of Tim Richmond, gets off course, and this may spell disaster for Jeff Bodine.
Tim was pressing him pretty hard, but then it looked like there in the last lap or so he was starting to get a little bit of a distance between him and Tim, but he must have been leaning out pretty hard to do it.
So now the lead is turned over to Tim Richmond, and Neil Bonnet goes into 2nd position. This will be a real story of Neil Bonnet in this race with all the physical problems that he has experienced recently. In 9th position is Bobby Allison. 10th is Benny Parsons. 11th is Bill Elliott. 12th is Morgan Shepherd. 13th is Bobby Hillen Jr., the winner of Talladega. 14th is rookie Mike Waltrip, who is currently the leader in Winston Cup Rookie of the Year points. In 15th position is the number 7 car of Kyle Petty. And then in 16th spot is the 71 of Dave Marcus. That's how they stand at the moment. The big news of the last lap is Jeff Bodine's spin off course, allowing the lead to be taken over by Tim Richmond. The rest of the field there is Bobby Allison, Benny Parsons, and Jeff Bodine, who is now back in about 11th spot. He lost that much in just that little spin. And Richard Petty is continuing to smoke.
He's still smoking. It's you can't really tell if it's getting any worse or not. It seems a little worse on different parts of the track, but that could be a problem later on.
It's been a very consistent,
quite a bit more there as you come off the corner.
Very consistent and a very good ride for Richard Petty, who's in the race that ran here 21 years ago. He has 5 wins on road courses, all of those coming, of course, at Riverside. His last victory was in 1977. This was his 1,004th career start here at Watkins Glen this weekend. He's currently 14th in the point standings. There is the leader, Tim Richmond, from Dooley, North Carolina, by way of Ashland, Ohio. And Tim Richmond has been so consistently good in the last few races, and he's leading here today. We'll be right back. A car off the course. That is Mike Waltrip from Owensboro, Kentucky, in the Hawaiian Punch Pontiac. The car off course, but he drives it back on. No major problem. We'll see if it necessitates a yellow. I don't think it's going to. It occurs in turn number 1, and Mike is back underway, so no yellow. Now, Richard Petty in number 43 has been smoking. We have noticed it the last few laps. Word is that he might be black flagged. We'll watch for him to come around to see if Harold Kinder does give it to him. But it's pretty obvious, Rick, that smoke is coming from that car.
It is smoke. It seems to be staying about the same, but you know, it could be getting a lot of oil on the windscreens of the cars behind him or something like that, making the track a little slipperier also.
Well, he did not get the black flag, so they're going to allow him to stay out there. He is right behind Dale Earnhardt, and he was running ahead of Earnhardt until just the last couple of laps, and right behind Richard Petty, eating that smoke, is Rusty Wallace in the number 27 car.
He's also been smoking a little bit there too. Wallace has too, so it's you know, got both of them running together there.
That is 5th, 6th, and 7th. Earnhardt 5th, Petty 6th, and Rusty Wallace in 7th position. Is Ricky Rudd, number 15, and he is in 4th. So still continuing to have a very good race here, and they're not getting spread out by any means. And the leader, Tim Richmond, is being clocked at the track at the back of the backstretch, the end of the backstretch, at about 152 miles an hour. So he has slowed down a little bit compared to what they were running earlier. But for Tim Richmond, he has the lead, and about a couple of second lead on Neil Bonner. And the black flag this time is being displayed. It is being displayed to Richard Petty. Harold Kinder waving the black flag, telling Richard Petty that he must come into the pit area to have that car check over to see if it is indeed leaking fluid. That's got to be a tremendous disappointment for Richard, because he has been very consistent today and looked very, very good. And I'm sure you've experienced this before, Rick, when your black flag.
You hate to see that black flag. You know, even though it is smoking or oiling or whatever, you hate to see it when everything's working and you're still running. If it's bad enough the car's quitting anyway, then you don't mind it. But when it's still going, you hate to see that black flag.
He's still running well. And you can see Dale Earnhardt making a gesture to Richard as if to say, I assume that you saw the black flag and will be leaving the race course. We'll see if Richard does heed the black flag, but I'm sure he will. Richard Petty, of course, from Randleman, North Carolina. Currently 14th in the Winston Cup standings. His best finish this year has been a 3rd. That occurred earlier in the year at the 500-mile race in Rockingham, North Carolina. Has not had good finishes recently.
He's coming in.
Yes, he is. His most recent best finish was a 6th at Riverside. He's in the pit area. Jack Arute is in the STP Pontiac pit area.
Richard Petty comes to a screeching halt at the STP Pontiac. Dale Inman stops it. They go to the back of the car in the trunk where the dry sump system is located. They check that. It seems to be clean and dry, so that's not where it's leaking. They look underneath the car. They can't find anything wrong. They fill it with fuel, and they send him back in. And you can see that Dale Inman is pointing right now to the ground, saying there isn't anything on the ground. We're not leaking anything. I'm going to jump in here and see if we can get a word with Dale to see what the problem is. Dale. There certainly didn't seem to be anything on the ground. Where did they say they thought it was coming from?
Jackie, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely smoking, but they might be a little bit getting on the brake rotors or something like that, and they're terrible hot and making a lot of smoke. I tried to talk them out of it, but they didn't want to listen to me.
Well, that's the story in a tough break, especially on a road course, because you can't see it and maybe tell them where you think it's coming from.
I know that, and they've been some cars that smoked all day, but we'll just have to live with it.
Well, they're going to have to live with it. A tough break for Richard Petty.
Yeah, it's also a tough call for the NASCAR officials to really throw that black flag. There is Eddie Bierschwal in car number 64, who is off the track and receiving some assistance from corner workers. Bierschwal in that number 64 machine, the Sonny King Ford. Eddie from San Antonio, Texas, trying to get him restarted, but I don't think they're going to have much success. So we'll continue to watch Richard Petty to see if that smoke continues and whether or not he can build up the advantage and the position that he had at one point. There is Jeff Bodine, who's also continuing to try to thread his way back up through traffic. He is not doing real well. He's back up to 8th, but still a lot of cars between him and the leader, and a lot of racetrack besides. Jeff Bodine spinning while he was in the lead and has been trying to catch back up ever since. Tim Richmond continues to be our leader. Bonnet second, Waltrip third, Rudd fourth, and Dale Earnhardt now running in 5th position. Bodine, as we said, in 8th. Chemung, New York chauffeur. Not too far from Watkins Glen. That's a 4.5 second lead for Tim Richmond in this car. There, once again, we see the battle of the Junior Johnson cars, and they've switched positions in the last lap. It's now has moved into second.
And he just waved to him when he came off the corner.
Little friendly wave there as Darrell went around Neil Bonnet. Oh, we have a problem, and a yellow flag is out. Bobby Hillin Jr. spinning. And Richard Petty almost making contact with him. I don't think there was any contact, but it sure was close. And now,
just a slight tap is all.
Yeah, now this will bring everybody in for a pit stop, and it will eliminate the possibility of everybody running out of fuel with just a couple of laps to go. Petty is back underway, but we now watch the leaders to see if they choose to make a pit stop, and we are sure that they will. This is our 4th caution period of the afternoon. There is Tim Richmond slowing down for an apparent pit stop.
That's a great break for Jeff Bodine to be able to help him punch back up and catch up with everybody.
And there is Tim Richmond moving off of corner number 7 and entering pit road. The leader is in the pits. Let's go once again to Jackaroo.
All of the top runners bring their presence known onto pit road. Tim Richmond is the first one to come to a stop. Darrell Waltrip is second. And now Neil Bonnet has come to a stop. All 3 of them are going on side tires. They're also cooling down the brakes on Neil Bonnet's car on the right side. Waltrip is just about complete. No, they're going to go to 4 tires on Waltrip's car. Likewise on Neil Bonnet's car. On Tim Richmond. All 3 crews working almost in unison. Taking a look here. Who will be first? Waltrip is down and away first. It'll be Waltrip, then Bonnet, and it'll be Tim Richmond taking up 3rd.
So the Junior Johnson team does its work. The Junior Johnson team does its work and gets their drivers out front.
That's a great job. Talk about what a relief. That pit work, the guys make a tremendous job like that. When you make a pass in the pits, that's a good feeling.
No, we say it time and time again, and I know people get tired of hearing it, but indeed a race can be won or lost in the pit area.
Sure can.
That could be the situation that we face here this afternoon. As Bobby Hillin's car is still stalled on the racetrack, this will necessitate a wrecker to the area to get it off. Meanwhile, it's going to be Darrell Waltrip leading this race, Neil Bonnet in second, and Tim Richmond third as the result of pit work. We'll be right back in just a moment. There are 35 laps till the end of the race, and that's just about the maximum that these guys think they can go. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if he has enough fuel, and we'll also keep an eye on that tire situation.
Bob, we've got Jeff Bodine in the pit down here.
Jeff Bodine has come in for a stop. They did have the hood up on that car. It's back under power now, but things have gone sour here for Jeff Bodine in the last few laps. He led a great portion of this race. There are 15 cars, by the way, on the lead lap, and Jeff is the 15th car right now, so he is the last on the lead lap. Running in 14th position, by the way, is Mike Waltrip, then Richard Petty in 13th, 12th is Dave Marcus, 11th is Morgan Shepherd, in 10th position is, number 7, Kyle Petty would be in that spot. Bobby Allison is 9th. Ricky Rudd is 8th. 7th is Benny Parsons, who's driven a fairly consistent race and who's going to the Bondurant driving school and competing in some GTO races. Has apparently paid off for him this afternoon. Rusty Wallace is in 6th. Dale Earnhardt 5th. Fourth is Tim Richmond. Third, Neil Bonnet. Second is, of course, the number 11 car of Darrell Waltrip, and in the lead at the moment is Bill Elliott with 14 laps to go, and it seems as if the green flag will be coming out here in just a moment. Cars come off of corner number 7, or at least approach corner number 7 with Bill Elliott in the lead. Now he begins to pick up the pace as the cars come off the corner. The pace car dives to the inside, heads for pit road. The green flag comes out, and we're racing once again. Now let's see what Darrell Waltrip does. Let's see if that tire vibration is going to be a problem for him, if he can pass Bill Elliott. He held him off for the first turn.
When you have a problem like that, you tend to kind of sneak up on it a little bit that first time through the corner just to make sure.
The battle at this point is for third position, as Tim Richmond would like to take over third with Neil Bonnet. But now Tim falls in behind Neil as they head single file up the hill slightly into corner number 4, and now on to the backstretch. Bill Elliott leads him down. Darrell Waltrip is right behind him. Here comes Tim Richmond on the inside. Up Neil Bonnet to try to take that third spot. He's going to do it.
Got it.
And let's watch Earnhardt. Ooh, Earnhardt in motion. Bonnet going side by side.
Sorry, I thought that was Bodine coming over that yellow nose.
That's Dale Earnhardt, and he wasn't able to pick up the spot, but Tim Richmond has gained third now, with Neil Bonnet in 4th and Earnhardt in 5th position. Now we have a change of leader as Darrell Waltrip was able to pass Bill Elliott, and Darrell Waltrip goes back into the lead. That is our 9th lead change of the afternoon. Now let's see if Tim Richmond can make a move on Bill Elliott as they head down the straightaway. This is one of the areas of the racetrack that we have seen most of the passings going into corner number 1. He's inside. Oh, he almost touched, but Tim grabs the spot.
Close running here.
So it is Tim Richmond in 2nd position. We'll take a look at the lead change once again, as Waltrip chose the outside to pass Bill Elliott.
He must have really got a good drive, you know, coming off of turn 5 there to be able to pull out around him that early in the straightaway. He's working well.
But he is not pulling away from the rest of the field by any means. As a matter of fact, Tim Richmond is right on his back bumper. Now it's about a 1 or 2 car length advantage. The advantage that Waltrip has, and Bill Elliott getting a little high in that corner. Getting the car just a little bit sideways, but he did not lose that position. We're in the closing stages of this 90-lap race here at Watkins Glen, New York, and look at Tim Richmond right up on the back bumper of Darrell Waltrip. Tim has had such a great season recently. In the last, let's see, 7 races, if you throw out a 15th place finish that he had at Michigan, he has had a second, a first, and a second. And he has been really competitive all race long. He was our pole sitter. Did have a problem at the beginning of the race with the engine missing, but they switched over to the backup ignition system, and he has been leading or hot on the tails of the leader ever since that point. Tim Richmond in 2nd position. He and Darrell Waltrip are really having a battle here in the closing stages of the Budweiser at the Glen.
You know, the Elliott here, he didn't make a pit stop there, so he doesn't have the fresh tires on, and he may just be kind of trying to hold on here until these guys run the tires off a little bit, and then it'll equal up a little bit more.
And Tim Richmond goes into the lead. Tim Richmond becomes our 10th lead change of the afternoon. Only 5 leaders, but we have had 10 lead changes. Now Tim Richmond begins to stretch it out just a little bit on Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip and Tim Richmond, you'll recall, battled almost side by side to the final checkered flag at Riverside earlier this year, a race that Waltrip won, but it was a close battle with Richmond, and they're in the same kind of a duel here this afternoon on the road course. They cross the stripe once again and complete lap number 79. We've got 11 more circuits to go. There's a good look at Tim Richmond, who gained some experience on this track driving an IndyCar, as you heard him say before the race began. Would you like to see IndyCars run here, Rick?
I would. I enjoyed this track very much so, and everyone here is a good track for us. It's a nice area. It's a beautiful area besides, so I've always enjoyed coming here.
It really is one of the most beautiful areas, I think, in the entire United States. This Finger Lake system, and there are some tremendous rock formations and gorges and waterfalls and that type of thing that make this area just unbelievably beautiful. Well, they're running in single file now. Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace here are running for the spot. Right now it is Earnhardt in 5th position and Rusty Wallace in 6th, but they're running very close together out there on the racetrack.
He's done a great job coming back, you know, from the earlier problems with the smoking, the flat tire and things like that. It's really working out well for him.
Yeah, I think if I were to vote on a hard luck award of the day, it would have to go to Rusty Wallace.
I think so too.
He's led this race and has experienced numerous problems, but he, through all of this, has remained on the lead lap and is in 6th position. Single file down the straightaway once again. Bill Elliott still running in 3rd. There's Neil Bonnet, and there is Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace. Earnhardt in that Wrangler Jeans machine, car number 3. He, of course, is the current Winston Cup points leader, but he is only just a few ahead of Darrell Waltrip, and Tim Richmond is in 2nd position, 161 points behind Dale Earnhardt is Darrell Waltrip. Tim Richmond is 3rd in the point standings. Dale Earnhardt's best finish recently was a 7th at the Pocono 500. So we are just about 10 laps from the conclusion of this event now. We'll see if Tim Richmond can hang on for the win after this. With Rick Mears and Jack Aruth, this is Bob Jenkins back at Watkins Glen International Racecourse, where we are about 9 laps from the finish of the Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race. It is Tim Richmond who is in the lead, followed by Darrell Waltrip, then Bill Elliott, Neil Bonnet running 4th, and Dale Earnhardt in 5th position. You know, we were going for a record when we began this race today. If there was going to be a new winner this year, it would be the 13th different driver to win a Winston Cup race in 1986. And there have been 12 different winners to date this season, and that ties a modern-day record. Since 1972, there were 12 different winners in 83 and in 84 and here in 86. But the next time we have a different winner, it will set a record for Winston Cup modern-day racing. Now, both Tim Richmond and Darrell Waltrip have won in competition this year, and so has Bill Elliott. But when we get back to the 4th place runner, that is Neil Bonnet. He has not won on the Winston Cup trail this year, so he at the moment is the most likely to perhaps continue this string of 13 different winners. Now we have a battle between Earnhardt and Bonnet. Earnhardt looking to the inside of Neil at the end of the straightaway into turn number 1, and Earnhardt still with that inside advantage as they swing through the S's. He's really putting a challenge on Neil Bonnet at the moment.
They're both leaning on pretty hard. You see him sliding sideways around turn 5 there, and using them up pretty good. So they're gonna have a good battle all the way to the end here, I believe.
A little bit of racetrack between 1st and 2nd. Now Rusty Wallace wanted to make a move on Dale Earnhardt, but a slower car got in the way, and Rusty had to pull back into formation. They come off of corner number 7 and complete another lap. This is the completion of lap number 82. 8 more laps to the finish. A little bit of racetrack now between 1st and 2nd. Elliott hanging back just a little bit. Remember, he did not make a pit stop during the most recent yellow that we had, and is trying to stretch his fuel mileage to the finish of the race. And Neil Bonnet with a little bit of tire smoke, car sideways.
Awfully sideways. Uh-oh.
And that's Mike Waltrip, who has spun. Waltrip has spun and kicked up some dirt onto the racetrack. It's the 2nd time this afternoon that Mike has tasted the grass and has spun off the course. This occurs in corner number 3, I believe. At any rate, Waltrip is back under his own power. It does not necessitate a yellow, and it appears as if he has had some contact with the retaining wall, if not in that incident earlier in the day, because the back end of that car is banged up a little. There once again are the first 2, Tim Richmond and Darrell Waltrip. Tim Richmond won the pole for this race, his 3rd of the year. Darrell Waltrip started this race from the second starting position. So we have the drivers who started first and second still running first and second with just 7 more laps to go in this race. Boy, the names that have won here are just a history book of racing. They started running Formula One cars, and we have Kyle Petty, who has gotten off course also, but it's only a momentary off-course excursion, and he's back out there. Did kick up a little dust, creating perhaps some visibility problems for some of the drivers in back of him, but Kyle is okay and back underway. Started racing Formula One back in 1961 here at the Glen. Innes, Ireland won that race. Jim Clark and Graham Hill dominated Formula One racing for about the next 6 years. Jackie Stewart, our ESPN colleague, has won here at Watkins Glen in Formula One. In fact, this is the place where he retired after Francois Sever was killed in 1973. The last Formula One race was held here in 1980. Alan Jones won it. Gilles Villeneuve, also a former winner. And now we have Dale Earnhardt really putting a challenge on Neil Bonnet for that spot. That's the battle for 5th position.
He set him up coming off that corner to get a run at him, and it looks like it's working.
Let's see what Dale does. He's down to the inside of the racetrack, headed for turn number 1. We've seen numerous passes here today, and we see another one. Earnhardt goes into 5th spot. And Rusty Wallace, I think, wanted a little bit of that Neil Bonnet car, too, at the end of the straightaway, but he could not make it. Mike Waltrip continues to have problems. He is obviously experiencing some serious problems, and Bobby Allison is also off in this same corner. There may be some oil in that area. Mike Waltrip slides off course, and right behind him, Bobby Allison. But both are going to get back on track and continue in the race. Bobby Allison was running in 11th position when that incident occurred, and Mike Waltrip was running 15th. So it was a couple of cars on the lead lap, but neither one of them in contention for the win here. Now the leaders approach Chet Phillip. And he is passed easily by Tim Richmond and now also by Darrell Waltrip.
Also some of those problems too this late in the race, the brakes can be going away, and it's very easy to get in too hot like that this late in the game. And the brakes fade when you get off the course like that.
4 more laps to go. It is a dogfight between Tim Richmond and Darrell Waltrip. Tim Richmond with just a very few car length advantage now on Darrell Waltrip. It will mean a definite move up in points for Tim Richmond if he can add to his total here this afternoon. He is currently 185 points behind the Winston Cup points leader Dale Earnhardt, but this will certainly add to his total, although he won't gain a whole lot because Waltrip, who's in 2nd place in the point standings, is 2nd, and Earnhardt, who is the leader, is in 4th. Tim continuing to manhandle that race car on the track, sliding it around the corners, but has driven a very consistent and good race. Jeff Bodine, by the way, is back in the pit area. The problems continue for that Levi Garrett Chevrolet. Jeff Bodine back in the pit area after having led a great portion of this race.
Maybe they said he had some overheating problems earlier, that's why he was on the time before, so it could be still continuing.
Another lap clicks off. There are now 3 to go. And it's a 2.19 second advantage. 2.19 seconds for Tim Richmond.
Good battle going here with Elliott Earnhardt.
Earnhardt looking for that 3rd position. It's Bill Elliott in 3rd at the moment, but Dale Earnhardt is right there to make the challenge. And it looks to me like that Tim Richmond is slowly pulling away from Darrell Waltrip.
Yes.
And if they can if Tim Richmond can put some slower cars between himself and Waltrip, it will be even a greater advantage to him. But Tim, it appears, is pulling away now in the lead. He's opened up about a 2.5 second lead, and we'll time him next time around to see if that increases. Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt battling here for that 3rd spot.
It's only tight coming off there. This could be the time. Sliding up. Didn't make up his mind here.
They almost touched.
Got it.
And Dale Earnhardt moving into third position, and he's off the track, but
that late braking will do that to you.
Got off the track just momentarily, but did a great job of driving.
Good job of driving.
2 more laps to go. The next time around, it'll be the white flag for Tim Richmond. Here they are. Earnhardt and Bill Elliott for third spot. Earnhardt now may be able to pull away from Bill just a little bit. Elliott may still be concerned with the fuel, although he would be going for it at this point with less than 2 laps to go.
And Elliott's been looking awful loose over the last couple laps too. He's really been having to, not pitting for tires or anything. I'm sure the tires have gone up quite a bit, and he's really doing a lot of slipping and sliding there.
But you got to wonder if that wasn't really a pretty smart move for Bill when he decided not to come in on that last yellow flag.
Oh yeah, I think it was. I think it was a good move.
Less than 2 laps to go now. Earnhardt now begins to put some distance between himself and Bill Elliott. And it appears as if Tim Richmond has at least one slower car between himself and Darrell Waltrip. So it's looking pretty good for Tim Richmond here. He comes off of corner number 7. The white flag is out. The last lap. The Budweiser at the Glen. Here they come down the straightaway. It's a 1.15 second advantage for Tim Richmond. If Darrell Waltrip is going to make the move, he's going to have to do it soon. He goes to the inside and passes George Fulmer, a slower car. Look at Earnhardt get sideways coming off of corner number 1, but he keeps that third spot.
These guys are working here. They are working good.
Tim Richmond is pulling away, it appears, on Darrell Waltrip. Tim Richmond will be winning his 4th race of 1986, and that will be the most wins that any driver has. Coming in, Dale Earnhardt had 3 wins, Tim Richmond had 3 wins, Jeff Bodine had 2, but Tim will be all alone now in the win column should he put together this victory here this afternoon, and he has about a half a lap to go. Down the backstretch for the final time. It's still about a 1-second lead for Tim Richmond, but he's looking very, very strong. He's in corner number 7. Tim Richmond is about to win the Budweiser at the Glen. He raises his hands, comes off the 7th corner, gets a little bit sideways. The back tire's off the course, but it doesn't make any difference. Tim Richmond has won the Budweiser at the Glen. Finishing second was Darrell Waltrip, and third place went to Dale Earnhardt, 4th to Bill Elliott, and unofficially in 5th place was Neil Bonnet in an outstanding performance here this afternoon after having some serious questions about his physical ability to go this entire distance. But he does, and Neil Bonnet finishes 5th. 6th unofficially was Rusty Wallace. 7th was Ricky Rudd. 8th was Benny Parsons. 9th, Kyle Petty. And 10th was Richard Petty. So the Pettys finished unofficially in 9th and 10th. 11th was Morgan Shepherd. 12th was Bobby Allison, despite some agricultural racing late in the event. And 13th was Dave Marcus in car number 71. Tim Richmond from Dooley, North Carolina, by way of Ashland, Ohio, has won the Budweiser at the Glen Winston Cup race. And he will be going into victory lane to talk with Jack Arute right after this. Here's Jack Arute.
Hey, well, who says road racing's a bore? Congratulations, Tim Richmond. That was one whale of a run.
I tell you what, there was a lot of tough guys out there, and we held back a little bit there for a while to just make sure we had the brakes to be able to race them at the end. And the car worked great. I mean, Harry Hyde and the whole Folgers crew, they're making me look real good, and they're making it a lot easier on me to win races. And I can't take much credit because they're the ones that put this equipment under me, and Rick Hendry. And I want to say hi to Rick's mom down in Charlotte. She was sick, and my sister in Ohio, in Ashland, the Wales rib down in Deerfield, but they're going crazy now. Anyway.
Hey, listen. 4 wins. Now you're the guy that's leading. You've got 4. Earnhardt had 3. You've moved into the leadership role. What about the Winston Cup points chase? You said all along that we're going to be in it by the end of the year. This has got to make it one more mark, even though you gained just a few spots over Waltrip and the rest of, and Earnhardt and the rest of them.
Well, you know, some drivers seem to think that the media and the paper and hey, Harry! Hey!
Boy, there you go. Now, there's a guy, Harry Hyde, that is absolutely proud. Harry, you know, at the beginning of the year, you said that Tim Richmond was really going to be the cat to be dealt with. Now, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think he's great. I couldn't say enough for him. You know, he just run a beautiful race all day, kept his cool, run smooth, and, you know, it just proves he's a champion. He's a champion all the way.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got Rick Hendrick here also, and this is a guy that we normally don't get to see in victory lane. Rick, a two-car operation, you've won with both of them, but this is the cat that's really getting the job done.
And look what we did. We brought the old man out of retirement. How about that for an old guy? Yeah. Timmy drove a heck of a race, and we couldn't be any happier. And I'm just so proud of Harry and Tim this year. And I don't know how many he's going to win. He said he was going to win 8. I think can you win 8? You still got time?
I promised you I'd win 6, so I got 2 more to go.
What do you think about that, Richmond?
Well, I'd take it, but also the guys back in the engine shop, Mark Graves and everybody, you know, this thing ran like a top all day, and I'm just glad to be here. But what you was talking about before about this championship thing, a lot of drivers think that talking on this thing and in the newspaper and stuff has something to do with on the track, but this thing right down here is going to do, you know, if it can talk, it will, and if it can beat them, it will, and if it can't, then I like third, too.
Well, Richmond says put your foot where your mouth is, gentlemen.
Well, he didn't gain much as far as points is concerned. He's still in third. He gained 15 on Earnhardt, still 160 points behind in the battle for the Winston Cup.